Greetings, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope you had a wonderful week. For some people, it's their first week of summer. I know for my children, they got out about a week ago. And so it's been a great, first week and a half, I guess, of summer. Um, but I wanted to come to you guys today because for the last 8 weeks, I have been teaching a vocal pedagogy class. And basically, vocal pedagogy is the study of how to teach voice. And I have been teaching 8 voice teachers just pretty much everything they need to know in order to be great, intuitive, skillful voice teachers. They're from all over the world. They have a variety of practices. And we're at week 8. And so now we're bringing all these pieces together, talking about how to coordinate the vocal mechanism. We've spent several weeks talking about, of course, posture, breathing in the support system, the actual vocal mechanism, the resonance system, articulation, all of those things separately, but it's so difficult to talk about singing. It's hard to discuss one mechanism without it bleeding over into another mechanism, because at the end of the day, singing singing is about several systems working together in concert, if that makes sense. It's not a lot of it's not as much musculature as it is skillful use of certain muscles that are coordinated in order to create good sound. So one of the things that I was teaching today was about extending vocal range, and I just wanted to talk about it because I know this is a topic that many singers, they come to voice lessons because they want a wider range, as if a wider range is like a number 7 that you can order and just kind of have served up. But a wider range comes from a variety of things. And I wanted to talk about those variety of things that come together, the coordinated sounds that come together in order for us to have uh, an extended range. So I'm just reading straight off my notes. It says it starts with a coordinated laryngeal function, breath support, resonance, and articulation in the most comfortable tessitura. So that's step one. And I say this all the time, but in order to extend your vocal range, you have to have great vocal activity happening right in the middle of your tessitura, the midpoint of your tessitura. And the tessitura is basically the comfortable part of your range. So where do you sing comfortably? Make sure that's right. And what happens is everything good comes from that. So they said there's 3 factors that are the most important to extending your vocal range. And it is the idea of energy, space, and depth. The higher the pitch you sing, you must use more energy. And the lower the pitch, you must use less energy. The higher the pitch, the wider the space that you need in order to sing the pitch correctly. The lower the pitch, the less space you must use. Depth, the higher the pitch, I think it's the higher the pitch, the more depth you need in order to sing it well. The lower the pitch, the less depth. And so those are the 3 things that I wanted to talk about today. So when we talk about energy, we're basically talking about how we shouldn't have a localized effort in singing music. We know that the energy center comes from the breath, right? The breath is the engine, and we're supporting that with the diaphragm. But sometimes if we as a voice teacher tell a singer to just support from the diaphragm, that results in a lot of locked tension in the middle of their voice. And a lot of times when this is locked, this becomes locked. So if we tell the singer that their entire body is involved in the action of singing, then that allows them to contract their stomach muscles and their diaphragm, while also bringing the energy from the entire body in. So that's why we do exercises like woo, things like that. We're bringing energy into our whole body in order for healthy vocal production to happen. Now, notice how high that pitch was. If I'm going woo, I don't need as much energy, right? And in fact, it's antithetical to good singing to use the same amount of energy that I would use up top. Sometimes because we hear, oh, I need a lot of energy in order to sing, we'll just put a lot of energy behind every single note. And what that happens with that is we become hyper functional. Something ends up being pushed. There are some muscles that end up being pushed. We're adding tension, and then we are actually creating a less than ideal vocal tone. Space. This is so interesting because everyone has this idea that in order to sing well, we have to have an open throat and we have to have an open mouth. But there are two things that come to mind when you think of space. Yes, the oral space, but what about the internal space? It's not just about dropping your jaw. So we're dropping our jaw as much as we need to. Remember, we only need the beginning of the yawn. Even the highest note that we have never needs the full capacity of our jaw being down. I love that. I love that, Joseph Harris. So, number one, adding space as we go higher in pitch helps to maintain the proper laryngeal position, which means if we keep our mouth closed, like, notice what that does. The pitch starts to kind of whiten, it thins out, and there's a lot of tension in my throat. The pitch stays round, the pitch stays full. I had to modify the vowel by dropping my jaw, and my larynx was able to stay low. So that's what we talk about when we're saying that higher notes need more space, okay? The third thing I wanted to talk about today is depth. The idea that as you sing higher, you need more depth, and as you sing lower, you don't need any more depth. By depth, we mean richness of tone and the idea that as notes go higher, it needs to feel lower in our bodies. It's like the sounds, the feeling of the sound needs to be planted in our thighs, in our feet. It needs to go lower so that our whole body is supporting that. As the pitch goes higher, we don't need as much depth. So if I were to do that again, so I was even just on a lesson a few minutes ago, and we were discussing that as a note gets higher, see an arrow going down. And as a note returns back to the, if you're going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, as it reaches the 1, think of it as going up. Think of it as getting more shallow and smaller. So okay, it lives up here in a small space. And I think that's all I wanted to talk about today. That's how you were able to access high notes. You access high notes by getting them really good in the middle voice and being aware that energy, space, and depth is variable depending on the pitch. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. I see that I have some comments here. If you guys have any questions, I'll be glad to answer your questions while I'm on here. There's a million formats. Yes, there are a lot of formats. You are correct. Hi. Thank you, Stefan. Very good, very good. Hi, Mark. Yes, I love how educated you are. People think sing up when they need to sing a little more forward to get higher. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Ordette. Oh, thank you. How does this impact this notion of your tongue, whether or not you swallow it while you're singing? Hold on, let me wrap my mind around what you're typing. When are you ever supposed to swallow your tongue when you're singing? I don't understand the whether or not, because that's never supposed to happen. When we are singing, singing is not a natural phenomenon. What is a natural phenomenon is eating and swallowing and drinking. Singing goes against all of those things because we're telling our body to ignore its natural tendencies and keep the tongue out of the way. Your tongue should be out of the way regardless of whether you're singing high or low, because that's just what facilitates singing in general. If our tongue goes back, we're swallowing. So we're always releasing those swallowing muscles. And when we have tension, it's because the swallowing muscles many times are wanting to take over. Our throat doesn't want to be open. If our throat stays open, we could choke on something. Our bodies know that. So it wants to tighten up. We have to train our bodies to stay released. Do I prefer pharyngeal resonance or nasal resonance when hitting high notes? I used to prefer nasal, but I have seen the light. My last voice teacher, John, told me, he's like, you don't need that anymore. Sing to your soft palate. Because I used to be like, I used to be like that. And he's like, why is it sung forward? And he was like, sing to your soft palate. So I guess it has a fuller sound and it just sounds more polished. Do you find people without much of a head voice? I feel like all of my head voices in my life. Yes, especially pop and gospel singers. A lot of people don't have a head voice. Angela, I'm not sure how to answer that. It's accomplished through practice and training. Yes, it sounds more polished. It sounds more professional. For sure. Was it last summer or 2 summers ago when I was working with John? That was the main thing that we were working on. Well, one of the things was keeping my sound in the soft palate versus right here. Of course you do. You have more than one. Okay, these run-on sentences, you have more than one vocal teacher or instructor. There's no punctuation. I don't know if you're asking or telling. I've never had more than one vocal coach at a time. So when I was in school, I had a vocal coach. When I graduated, I went to a different vocal coach and I studied with him for, I'm not sure, maybe 5 or 6 months, maybe a year. I don't even know, but it was off and on. And he just happened to also be, he was the opera assistant director at the school that I graduated from. So I had worked with him just in the context of the opera class, but never one-on-one. I didn't work with him one-on-one until I graduated. So I do not recommend more than one coach at a time. I feel like you should find a coach that you trust. Because you're going to be constantly trying to cross-reference to the other coach. Like, well, so-and-so told me to do this. Do you agree with that? It's just like, okay, well, yeah. Hi, Samuel Epps. A double high G flat in mixed voice. What is a double high? I guess you mean like a G flat 5. I'm not sure what that means. Oh, yes. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here for a few more minutes. You need a vocal coach. I need a vocal coach. We all need a vocal coach. Okay. I need a vocal coach who specializes in vocal. Ooh. When you were my coach, I had both vocal cords intact. Ooh, after cervical spine surgery. Vocal coaches don't specialize in vocal cord paralysis. Vocal therapists do. A vocal coach, let me just give generalities here. A vocal therapist is somebody with a master's degree in speech pathology, and they have a certification from an organization called ASHA. They are clinical. If you want someone to deal with you clinically, then you need to go to a clinical professional, a vocal therapist. Once a vocal therapist has cleared you for vocal lessons, then you can come to a vocal coach. The thing with us is whatever it takes to take a voice to the next level is the same thing it takes to restore a voice. There are some professional singers with vocal cord paralysis, like with doctoral degrees in voice, that have vocal cord paralysis. And it's not for a vocal coach to try to diagnose that necessarily. We can only do what we do, which is the types of exercises that get the vocal folds moving and things like that. So it would be outside of our scope to say that we specialize in vocal dysphonias and disorders. That's not our, that's professionally crossing a boundary. And you know, I can say that because my well, not my last vocal coach, but my penultimate vocal coach, the one that I went to my grad school with, she has a doctoral degree, and her mother is a speech pathologist. And so because we get a lot of people like, oh, he had a stroke, can you help him, you know, and then they come with all of these vocal, like I said, dysphonias, all of these vocal disorders. I would ask her, like, okay, you have a doctoral degree. Would you work, you know? And she's like, no, that's outside of the scope of vocal teacher. That's not what we do. So she with a doctoral degree and a mother who's a vocal therapist. So she understands vocal therapy to a degree, and she would still say, I would not work with that person. Then who am I? Nope, I'm not doing it. Because I don't, it's a liability at that point. You're asking me to treat a medical issue that I'm not trained to treat. Good. It's hard to, I see. It's hard to find a vocal coach that you have something in common with. Okay. I can understand that to a point. Like, I'm trying to think, you know, if you, whenever you're choosing a therapist or something like that, you want to feel like that therapist understands your background and all that stuff. So I can see that. However, I don't think you should rely on personality necessarily. If the teacher understands the voice well enough that regardless of what their preferred genre is, they are, oh my gosh, versatile and just understand how the voice works, they should be able to work with you. Personality is good though. I've gotten along with all my vocal coaches because I like to sing and I like learning about singing, and they knew a lot about singing. So just based on that common ground, my vocal teachers were never anything like me. So that to me wouldn't be a determining factor. Yes, always start from the 5 and go down. So so basically you start them high and then you work them down. You should have been in my vocal pedagogy class. Anyways. Thank you, Joseph. With my yeah, there are a lot of overlaps for sure. For sure, there's a lot of overlaps. I just think there's nuances that I like to bring to the forefront because I don't want people saying like, "Oh, I'm doing vocal therapy with Delisa." You see what I mean? Because I do what your vocal therapist does, and it's like, "Oh, well, I'll just do vocal therapy with Delisa." Like, hold on a second. For me personally, that's just me. I like to have a level of professional integrity that I'm just very clear. Yes, I know a lot of what vocal therapists do, a lot of what vocal teachers do comes from the field of vocal therapy, to be totally honest. The singing through the straws, that's a vocal therapy thing that vocal coaches realize this works, not just in rehabilitating a voice, but in building a voice. Let's use this. So we do have a lot of professional overlap. Oh, okay. Okay. Um, hmm. I used to jokingly call my last vocal teacher Mary Poppins because she was very nice, but she did push me to improve. I would cry every semester when she gave me my song. She was the nicest person, but always gave me 7 songs in 5 languages with a smile. So again, I never got nice equals, you know, not challenging. Yeah. Can you explain the range change with pregnant women or who have given birth? Some female singers have gained range. Um, I think the range change usually, I mean, as you can imagine, it has to do 2 things: hormones and support. I could show you a video of me singing 10 years ago. Well, oh Lord, why did I say 10 years ago? My child's only 8. 8 years ago, right after I had my last child, and a video from a couple months ago, singing the same songs, and my voice was so raspy and so heavy after I had her. Um, and it was because it just felt like jello in the midsection. So a lot of times pregnant, well, other than like Kiki Wyatt, most people don't sing through their pregnancies. And so I think just number one, taking that time off is going to um, lessen the connection, the muscle memory connection. And then having a child that has pretty much pushed your abdominals off to the side or to the back or wherever they are, all of that is going to affect what you're feeling once that baby comes out of you. So it's for you to re-strengthen your abdominal muscles and your diaphragm so that you can support the sound again. Most people, the range loss is, for the most part, it's just due to not being conditioned anymore, and they just need to condition. I would say some sound better during pregnancy because, when you're first learning how to sing and they tell you to put a book against your stomach and then push the book against your stomach while you sing. Well, when you're pregnant, that baby is the book that's always there. So you always have this reinforcement of where you're supposed to be pushing from. That just doesn't exist when that baby's not there. So I think that's why some women sound better when they're pregnant. They can feel more, there's more reinforcement. Let's see. You're a lawyer in your head. Right, right, right. And I'm sure you know a lot about it, but you're just like, don't ask me to write up no contract. Let's write up a contract signing that you know I'm not a lawyer. Then we'll do it, you know. I'm sure the vocal coaches you've had in the past told you to sing on your internet and not your capital. What? You're going to have to break that down for me one more time. Some teachers will be up front and tell you can't sing. They can say, come on, that note was flat. You could do better from that. Oh, yes, this is true. And a teacher, I think it all depends on where they are, number one, in their skill level as a teacher and in their career as a teacher. Sometimes they're nice because they don't want to let that student go, right? Sometimes they're nice because they really don't know how to fix the problem. Sometimes they're super nice because they can't really tell what the problems are because you're a more advanced singer than they have the skill level to teach. So I think there's, there could be several reasons why a voice teacher wouldn't be upfront and frank about things. Because if you say, look, that note was flat, and you're like, okay, well, how do I fix it? And then they can't technically tell you how to fix it, that's a problem. It's one thing to be flat, it's another thing to just not really be functional. And I think voice teachers need to be honest about who they want to work with. Because for me, working with someone who's not functional is just not fun. That's not an ideal client for me. I want somebody who is musically functional, and then we can talk about technique, because technique is my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is not elementary music teaching, pitch and rhythm. Those are things we have to come in the door knowing so that I can perfect the gift. And like I said, with time comes the confidence to create that kind of business for yourself and not take every person that comes along. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm at a point where if somebody says their 10-year-old wants lessons, I'm like, not really. You're welcome. Hey. My teacher used his fist instead of a book and played like he'd punch me. That's intense. What? Okay, let me see. Okay. You've had in the past told you to sing on your interest and not your capital? No, no one has ever said that. That's a new one. I don't even know what I said to make you laugh. I know if you're constantly stretching the vocal cords by hitting notes all the time, it can lead to vocal injuries. Yes, this is true, especially if your cords are not ready for that. I do an excellent job of perfecting the gifts inside. That was a bit much. Well, that was a lovely conversation. Oh, I do an excellent job. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I got the nicest email today. Tips for public speakers. You're not going to want to hear this, but you're going to have to start talking off the voice and really making decisions about where you speak. You guys are so abusive on your own voice. Look at oh my gosh. You see Joel Osteen? He ain't gonna lose his voice. And guess what? God is no less glorified by the reading of his word with how he uses his voice. But you guys walk up acting like you're asthmatic when you're not, and you do that for 45 minutes straight. What tip would you like? Oh, thank you. It's okay. Why? It's, oh, thank you. Okay, oh boy, my big fourth child is in here now. So things are going to get rocky. How is it possible to work on whistle register? Look, I will tell people, I know whistle register. I'm not that good at whistle register. Mine kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. So generally, as voice teachers, if you don't already have a whistle register, if you don't already know how to access it, it's hard for us to teach you that. If you already have it, then we can kind of help you access it some more. I know my voice teacher just one day told me to hold my nose and go or something like that. And I was like, what's that? Oh crap, that's whistle. But really, I was only learning it to help lighten my head voice, which maybe goes back to that idea of singing on your interest and not your capital, right? Right, Looney Tune? So the short answer is I don't know. You guys, I don't even know what you're saying I'm into. Oh, yes. Holy Spirit can work in the quiet places. That's why after you sing, oh, okay. So the damage can happen after you sing, not while you're singing. Got it. Yes, this is all very true. This is all very true. This is all very, very true. I agree 100%. It's not that much a part of singing. It is an auxiliary register and it does more harm than good to use it on a regular basis. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate that you said thank you, even though I really did not help you just now. I so appreciate you. We're not going to talk about them today. But honestly, going back to the case of the preacher, in the case of the preacher, you guys need to just kind of negotiate. I understand the art of Black preaching and the need to serve culture in that way. So if you're going to continue to do that, then I think you still need to have an 80-20 rule where 80% of what you say is done in a healthy way so that 20% that is not healthy doesn't just, obliterate all of the work that you need, all of the good work that you've done before. The other thing I would say, I mean, that's really all I can say because it's essentially unhealthy, right? So yeah, unless you're trying to literally change your whole approach, I would say be careful of how you speak throughout the week. Use your voice as little as possible. Make sure you're warming up and warming down. Here's the baby. Do not lick me. No. No. Um, Speak off the voice as much as possible. Warm up and warm down. You still kind of need to do all of those things to get the best out of your voice. Period. No, I know that it's cultural. It's cultural to speak that way. I think Black people in general, we just have a hard way of speaking. Jamaicans, Africans, Caribbeans in general, we're just loud and hard on the voice. And I mean, even Black Americans, we just tend to speak on a harsher, on the thicker parts of our vocal folds. They tend to be too TA heavy just in speech, and we carry those over into preaching. Remember, Black preaching was born on plantations, correct? Where there was no microphone. And so it was this constant need to project and be louder than we had to be, or be more animated than we normally would have if we had amplification. And so even though amplification came into the picture, these cultural habits of how we deliver the message have been retained. And so it is a subconscious thing that, we sound the way that we sound even today. What I'm saying is then you have to consciously start to make choices to not sound that way. Huge. That's because most of the time they don't have good vocal technique because their voices shouldn't be dropping. Remember, a lot of pop artists start when they're in their teens. And they're usually done around 30, 40, if they've had a long career. But you'll notice that even within 10 years sometimes. So sometimes if they're in the middle of adolescence, you're going to expect a drop in pitch, especially if they're like 15 years old. You're not going to expect a 15-year-old to sound like a 25-year-old. So I would kind of start really saying if their pitch is dropped or not once they hit 25 to 40, like what's happening with their voice. And if there's a huge steep decline, then you know that has more to do with vocal technique or health issues than age. Age doesn't do that. She is a lab Sheba mix. Well, I don't know how low. Well, one of the things you can do to work on low register is not have your mouth so open and not push the sound to the back. So it's not like, keep the sound high. Tell yourself that you're still using some head function, some CT muscles, and the sound should be nice and forward and light. Amen. Why do singers sound brighter, lighter, and sometimes higher in studio recordings than live? Because they have an engineer that they pay a lot of money to. That's usually why. I mean, a lot of times it's because they went in on a really good day. But most of the time it's engineering. No one did tell you. Are you Jamaican? No one did tell you to hoot and holler. That's funny. Yeah. I mean, it has, but again, she started at 15. We can't expect, we can't, I don't know if her range, I mean, her range may have dropped, but probably not as much as we think it has. It's just enough that she doesn't want to show the world how much is, how much the tone has changed. It's definitely gotten heavier, but I think it's beautiful. Her voice has matured with her. You can't expect her to sound 21 at 40. I think people don't really understand how the voice. I just don't think her voice has dropped as much as people think it has. I think she's singing songs in a lower tessitura because her voice is rich. Her voice has gotten richer. We don't know how much it's dropped because she doesn't show us the high notes anymore. So just because she's not showing it to us doesn't mean it's not there. It just sounds different. She doesn't feel like being talked about. So she doesn't show those. Vanity said she started at 9. Okay, we said the same thing. What does it say? I think. Yeesh. Well, there you have it. I love it. I want you to think about this, Sam. Is it true that when you get older, when your voice ages, would you ever mistake a 75-year-old woman over the phone with a 21-year-old woman? Would you ever mistake it? Of course, your voice changes, just like your skin changes and your hair changes. Of course, it loses its luster. Oh, well, good for her. Of course. She bottoms at a G2. That's really low. What do I bottom at? Gladys Knight's voice found. Are you sure you want to say thank you to me for answering your question? Or you're not sure? You don't know if you like that answer yet. You don't know if you like it yet. It's okay. All right. Keeping your head up there don't matter because it's all right. Ooh. Thank you. Or maybe I'm an alto with high notes like Mariah. All right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right. Thank you. According to Mariah, she's an alto with range. That's why I said that. So anyway, thank you guys so much. Now you're making me wonder if I have a G2. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. I'm going to check my range. I'm going to see because G2 sounds low. I'm going to, so just so you guys know, you guys should come to my conference. I'm just letting you guys know. And I'm starting up my Develop the Artist Within You stuff. Is this a G2? I don't know if I can. Hold on. Let me start here. Plus, I'm a little hoarse. Let me see. Yeah, I can't do a G2. That was a. If that counts. I was trying to see if I could use vocal fry. That still puts me at a G sharp, A flat. This is funny. What are you guys saying? You guys are so nice. A2, I'm galling it now. Why do I have to sing it right now? I can play it. Oh boy. A dream is a wish your heart makes. Oh, thank you. Do we count vocal fry as an audible note? I think only if you're a bass, doesn't matter. I can't make that into a note. Because I'm like, G2, that sounds low. Okay, guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Hi, Shayna. All right, I'm going to go. Bye. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for asking all your questions.